Welcome back to another episode of the Freelancer Tea Break, the short and sweet podcast you can enjoy while you're making a cuppa. Now this month, because I do batch my podcasts a little bit ahead of time, I went to my Facebook group and I asked people what they wanted me to talk about. I gave a bunch of options and easily the most popular one was why you need an emergency plan as a freelancer. And it's one of those things that sits on the back burner and people think, oh, I must do something about that. Like if anything ever happens, what will happen? And then they never get around to doing it. And when I say an emergency, it can range from a whole variety of things. So it could range from you falling ill or getting an injury, maybe somebody in your family falling ill or getting an injury. But it can also be long-term health issues. It could be big life changes, everything from sort of moving house, breakups, divorces, everything like that. It could be your Wi-Fi suddenly going down. So it's a variety of things that you don't expect or you don't necessarily see coming. And if you're in a business, usually somebody else would be able to take over or contact people. But when you're freelance, we don't always have those backup plans in place. So I thought it might be useful to talk through a few things that you can think about. And it might just plant the seed for you to do a couple of little things that will make your life easier if anything ever happens. Obviously, this is all hopefully won't be needed, but there are so many times when we need to take a break or we're not able to meet client expectations or anything like that because something has happened. So the first thing I would have is to try and get in place somebody who would be an emergency contact. So somebody who you trust and you can give access to information that would be able to contact clients or contact team members, anything like that. So it could be another freelancer, it could be a family member, and ideally you give them some kind of hub of information that they can tap into. So it could be a Notion page of information of maybe your current clients and the status of your projects with them. It might be, like for example, on Facebook, you can nominate somebody if, in the worst case scenario, you pass away, they can take over your Facebook, things like that. So it's very much worth having an emergency contact in mind and have that conversation with them about what would happen if something came up. The next thing I think it's worth spending 10-15 minutes doing is writing a set of emails that can be saved into your drafts if there's some kind of emergency. So it might be an out of office template, it might be an emergency contact for your clients just to let them know something has happened, you're not going to be available for X and Y amount of time if you know what it is. You might also want to be thinking about what would happen if it was short term and what would happen if it was long term. So if it's short term, it might be moving deadlines back or bringing someone else in to complete the project. If it's long term, is it going to be a cancellation situation or moving over to a different freelancer? So that's something to have a think about. And that's also something to think about with your contract as well. Do you have something in your contract about what would happen if suddenly you were unable to work or unable to get in contact or anything like that? And vice versa, it's really useful for them to have, your clients to have that as well. So having some kind of email templates for if you had to send something very quickly, you could grab it and just plonk it over and send it as a message and just say, I'm so sorry, or something's just come up. You can say as much detail as you want, but if you don't want to say much at all, you can say a personal situation has just come up, which I have to deal with today. I will come back, or my VA will come back, or whoever you're working with might come back and communicate with them. It is really important to get that communication in place, and it's so easy to miss it. So if you do have like a VA or anything like that, that's kind of a good job to give to them as well if you have to rush off and do something. So the third thing I would say is having an emergency fund is really important. I know it's a luxury almost to have as well, but having some kind of savings pot if anything happened. As a freelancer, it's a vital thing anyway, because our income can go up and down. But to have, say, a month's worth of emergency fund put aside for if anything happened is never going to be a bad thing. So if you're able to start, even now, just start putting a little bit of money aside each month for that kind of thing, it just gives you a little bit more breathing room. It might also, if you really want to research things, look at if anything happened in terms of if you got sick, or if you had an injury or anything like that, or you became a carer for someone else, having a look at all the options out there in terms of funds that can help, and benefits and things like that. There's so many different things you can also consider. Also, one of the reasons I signed up for IPSI is because they do things like sickness cover and jury duty cover. Jury duty is another one of those things that could come up as like not an urgent emergency, but it could come up as a time when you won't be able to work for people for that period of time, and it covers that, thankfully. So it might be worth looking at life insurance, health insurance, something like IPSI that would cover some of those things, because that can all make life a little bit easier as well. So I did touch a little bit on this earlier, but have a look at your contract. Make sure that there's something in there if you're suddenly unable to work, what you will do, what would be the expectations, what kind of communication they would receive from you. And it's not always possible to keep up lots of communication with your clients, but it is worth letting them know, because it kind of eases the stress a little bit. But I do know it can slip down the list a little bit, but it will make your life easier later on. And then also assess, do you need to cancel, or do you need to pause some of these projects, or defer them, or do you need to bring in another freelancer who can take over whilst you're not working at that particular time? I think freelancers often feel nervous about being honest with a client and saying, I can't complete this in this time because something else has come up. We're all humans, even though we're freelance, we are humans. And if you were in an office job and something came up, the rest of the team would cover for you. Unless you've got a really awful client, most clients are really understanding if you can let them know what's happened, and hopefully they'll be really understanding with that. So those are just a few of the things to think about, and it is something I keep meaning to do, actually, to create a bundle of resources that makes it so much easier if you need to in that situation. And there are so many situations we're going to face like this, unfortunately, as you get older, more and more of them. But having something in place that you can turn to, especially if you're feeling quite panicked, that's a really scary feeling, to know that you can go to like almost a standard operating procedure in your system, whether it's, in a notebook or wherever, that you can go, right, I need to do this, this, and this, might be helpful in that kind of situation. So it's one of those projects I would recommend maybe spending half a day, just like a quiet Friday afternoon, putting all this together, because it will be something that future you will really appreciate. So yeah, if there's anything else you can think of that I haven't covered here, please do let me know, or come over into the Facebook group or the Discord group and let us know, because I think it's something we all need to be talking about more. And it's almost like people feel like there's so many different topics people feel like they can't talk about as a freelancer because it might be seen as unprofessional, like even things like miscarriage, loss of family members, things like that. These are all things that we need time away from work to heal from and deal with. And sometimes as a freelancer, it's easy to think, I've just got to keep going. And hopefully creating some kind of plan now will make it easier later on. So I'd love to know what your thoughts are on this, and if there's anything else you would add. And I will be back next week with another episode. Have a lovely freelance week.